Can you please tell us what to prepare for VC interviews?
Got it. Got it. So typically, I think I'll just talk about the shortlisting first and then the interview second. Again, for shortlisting, your resume is very, very important. You have to show experience which is relevant for a VC. And that experience, I think it would be more towards newer tech driven and product driven roles. For example, if you've worked at a startup, that's a very valuable experience for a VC. If you've worked in a consulting firm and worked in cases which are around, newer tech oriented startups, that's one thing that can really set your resume apart for a VC role. So getting those experiences right really helps you get shortlisted. There's no rule of thumb that was there in consulting for getting shortlisted. It's more like a case to case basis. If the profile clicks, if the VC sees something good in your profile, they'll go forward with the process. But assuming that, okay, you get forward with the shortlist, the next step involves a couple of interviews, ranging from 5 to 15 interviews. In fact, in one of the VCs, I gave 14 interviews and still not gotten. I think the process overall is same. As I mentioned, you have to master 2 industries. And what do I mean by master? You have to start at the top level. Which industry do you like? The second question is, how do you map out the entire industry? What are the different subsegments in this industry? Which of these subsegments is exciting? Which of these is not? In these subsegments, what startups or what startup models have you seen? And what are the pros and cons of each of these models? In each of these startup models, what are the top performing startups that are there? And which startup has the right to win? Which startup will establish a monopoly in this particular sector? Below that, what's that one new startup in this sector that you would like to pitch? I think so from the entire journey from top to bottom. If I were to give an example of one of the startups of one of the industries I chose social commerce. They asked me what my favorite industry is. I said social commerce. They asked me to map out the entire social commerce industry. I said that there are 3 ways in which, there are 3 subsegments of this industry. First is social media commerce, and that involves the likes of Meesho, Meesho, Shop 101, Glow Road, and, unorganized social media sales on WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook. The second model there is video commerce, so likes of Bulbul, SimSim, Instagram. The third is group buying commerce, so buying in groups and getting bulk discounts. So Dealshare was the player there, Mall91 was the player there. So my point of view there was that social commerce is the best model among all of these. Social media commerce is the best model among all of these. Went into depth among all of the 3. Meesho, Glow Road, Shop 101. What's Meesho's right to win? Why will Meesho succeed? What are the bad points of Meesho? Got a very good grip of that. And what's that next social media or what's that next social commerce trend that you would look at? So I formed a point of view around that. I said that it's going to be a mixture of D2C and social media commerce. I think that's where I formed a thesis around social commerce. Did a similar thing for chronic disease management. So master 2 industries, that's one part of it. Second part of it, as I said, is developing your network. So typical questions that you asked is, who do you know in the startup ecosystem? And the typical answers that should come out would be founders. That's number 1. Other VCs, having those contacts really helps because that becomes a sourcing mechanism for you. Accelerators, incubators, having connectivity there. So just displaying your network and displaying your connectivity and your content skills matter there as well. So your network. Third is they typically ask you to source one startup and do an entire diligence on one startup in your network that a VC fund might not have seen. So that's where they test both of these, skill A and skill B, together. And I think this is the thing which makes or breaks your interview. So typically all of these 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 conversations revolve around these points itself. One point that I missed is HR. In HR, the questions are pretty similar. What are your strengths, weaknesses? Why VC? Why not consulting? What do you want to do after VC? Very straightforward questions. What are those 3 things that set you apart and make you attractive to a founder? So abstract questions as well. You have to be on your toes to answer these questions. You have to be very self-aware. And I think that's something which comes with, since I work a year in a consulting firm, I really got that self-awareness very quickly. If not, you have to build that self-awareness, have to think through these answers, come self-prepared. And even if something out of syllabus comes, you just have to, stay calm, think through the answer and just give it confidently. Yeah. That's typically how, one should prepare for a VC fund.